Welcome back, y'all, to the AlexAndMo I Am a PT podcast, and we are still in the month of October, where it's National Physical Therapy Month, and we are so blessed to be teaming up with a fellow podcaster, and he is also a professor, branded the Professor of Profit, Dr. F. Scott Feil. Welcome to our podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me, you guys. I love what you're doing. I love anybody who's out there doing great things and trying to amplify, voices. I think that you guys are a prime example of those that we need to spotlight and get out there. So I'm very excited to collaborate with you on this and release it both on your podcast and on the Healthcare Education Transformation podcast too. So this will be a good conversation tonight for sure. But yeah, thanks for having me, you guys. I'm pumped to be here finally.
Absolutely. We appreciate you taking the time to be with us. Obviously, we know you time is of essence, and we really do appreciate you taking the time to be with us this evening to talk about this topic, which I think we have hit on some previous episodes, probably not to the detail that we will get to it this evening, but nonetheless a very important topic. With where we are as a profession and where our future colleagues are starting off, and, whether they're starting off behind the eight ball or, there's many different takes on it. Kind of leading into this conversation was kind of interesting. I saw on Twitter today that I guess since, COVID started a couple years back, the healthcare profession has lost a ton of professionals, specifically in PT. And I don't know the sources. I didn't dig too deep into it, but allegedly there was about 22,000 therapists that left the profession. And that's physical therapists, among some other healthcare providers. So, it brings into question when we're losing therapists, for whatever reason, burnout, stress, low pay, amongst other things. But then the new ones that were coming in, are they coming in equipped to be able to step in, not only from a clinical standpoint, but just from a financial standpoint? Can you make your ends meet with what we're being paid? I think when we had Allie last week, she said, Mo, and correct me if I'm wrong, in Pittsburgh, somebody's making about $50K, $60K if they're lucky, coming out of school. So yeah, it doesn't seem too promising.
Yeah, I mean, debt to income ratio, right? That's kind of the number one thing. And like you were talking about, Alex, the stat from earlier today, 22,000, that's almost 1% of the profession, right? If we figure there's about 330,000 PTs in the nation, right? 22,000 puts us at pretty close to 1% there. That's scary. And I saw another stat earlier today that this is the third year in a row now that college admissions in general have gone down, right? So we're dealing with a lot there. There's a lot to unpack, and it's not as simple as saying, oh, it's too expensive nowadays, or, oh, it's the debt to income ratio, right? There's a lot of factors here, right? And we probably don't have enough time to cover them all, but we can talk about solutions. I think that's going to be one of our biggest things here today, right? Let's just start with a real quick overview of debt to income ratio, right? This is really fortuitous timing because I'm presenting up at ELC this weekend in Milwaukee on the student loan debt crisis. So I think it's good timing. I worry a little bit about, the profession, in that people are going to start saying, well, the debt to income ratio is too high. I'm graduating, making 100, maybe 100,000 at best. And my debt is 200,000 or 150, right? The newest stat from CSM last year was the average DPT student graduates with about $154,000 worth of student loan debt. And that's average, right? So, okay, let's just say that debt to income ratio is bad and getting worse, right? Pittsburgh is a perfect example. They really have been getting hit hard the last couple of years on salaries. for whatever reason, it's a big city. There's a lot of people there to help fill jobs, so they feel like they can pay whatever they want and people will fill them. It's kind of like Austin. Austin's another good example, close to where I live here. They can lowball new grads because people want to live in Austin. It's a popular city to be in. So they come here and they say, all right, we'll pay you 55, 65,000 out of the gate. And it's like, okay, and people will take it because they're like, that's fine. I just want to live in Austin. I'll just work there and do that. Right. And again, it's partially our fault, right? We're lowballing ourselves by accepting positions like that. Right. But let's look at the bigger picture. I think physical therapy is still a great profession. When people come in, they ask me, hey, because of that debt to income ratio and all these issues going on and burnout and all this, is it still worth it to go into it? And I would argue it's just like any profession. It's just like any job. It's just like any major that you go into, right? It's whatever you make of it. So luckily for physical therapy, we have so many options available to us that we can make of it whatever we want, right? We know more than 94 to 96% of the population when it comes to musculoskeletal disorders, right? We can take that knowledge and turn it into, ways to help people, right? Whether it just be one-on-one patient care, or maybe you're in a practice where you're seeing 2 or 3 at a time, right? Not ideal, but it happens. Throughout the day, maybe you see 10 to 20 patients a day. Maybe it's a little more, but hopefully not. But let's say you're seeing 10 to 20 a day. That's great. You are impacting the lives of 10 to 20 people every day. But what if we were to take our skill sets and things that we learned in graduate school, right? Like prioritizing, right? Systematizing, right? Learning how to study and learn and then teach and educate, right? If we took those things and we apply them to some form of model that helps not just a one-to-one patient we're treating that day, but one-to-many, now we're having a bigger impact, right? And when you're teaching one-to-many, there's a strong chance that you're going to be making a lot more money than just what you make on your salary. So I always kind of start with the preface of it's really what you make of it. And if you feel that you can just go in and clock out and be a 9-to-5 therapist, that's fine. That's your prerogative. But I don't think that's really enough. And I don't think that's practicing at the top of your license, because there's so much more you can be doing, most of which will help bridge the salary gap that you're looking to get to if you do it. If you just implement, if you take the right steps to do more and to be more. And I'm not talking about working 8 hours a week here, right? I'm not talking about burning yourself out. I'm not talking about running yourself ragged into the ground here. We're just talking about doing the thing that you love to do and help people, and finding a way to scale it so that it's not just one-to-one, making that bigger impact, impacting more people, and finding ways to leverage it so that you can get paid what you're worth. So that's my box.
I like that. I often tell people that you can be successful in physical therapy as long as you work on thinking outside the box. And you hear the pushback. Well, you didn't graduate with $140,000 in student loans. You didn't start off with the same things that I started off because you had an advantage. And we hear the same thing about the equity and the equality and stuff like that. But there are people who have successful roadmaps, like some of the programs that you have. Some people aren't built to multitask, meaning they can't focus on having, or they don't have the discipline to focus on multiple streams of revenue to support or supplement a full-time salary job, or they don't have the testicular fortitude to take the risk of being an entrepreneur, because business is not for the faint of heart. So I know I didn't do research on revenue at all when I said I wanted to become a physical therapist. I just knew that that's what I was going to be. I didn't know anything about the cost. I didn't know how much I was going to be earning when I graduated. So all that was foreign to me. I just knew what I wanted to be. And I'm finding out because I do work with students, that a lot of them say after the fact that I wish I had done more research. How can we and you, professors of profit, other business owners, even those in academia, better educate those in middle school or high school of the cost benefit of being a physical therapy assistant, a physical therapist? How can we do better at that? Because we need to go upstream before they get committed to something, because it's hard to start a program spending 140 something thousand dollars in student loan and be burned out like 2 years in and wanting to change to go into a different career. That's a lot of money and a lot of time.
Yeah, I mean, again, so if we back it up a little, right? So I went to PT school and it was a master's program.
Mm-hmm.
I went to a private school for undergrad, so that cost me a pretty good penny. I had to take out, my parents helped a little bit with that, but I took out most of that student loan. The state school for a master's program, I worked while I was doing that, so I paid that off while I was in school. Then the transitional doctorate at a private school, and then the EDD at a private school as well. So I ended up with $140,000 worth of student loan debt, and 2 doctoral degrees to show for it. Neither of which I really wanted to use traditionally, but that's a whole nother story for another day, right? So the first step there is to realize that, okay, there's going to be some cost associated with it, right? We don't know. I mean, you may be better off. You may have benefits and wealthy parents who can pay for it, or maybe you have some scholarships, you fit into some really good niches that have good scholarships. Great. There's some cost associated with education. If you're choosing to go down that route, then yeah, you've got to do the research, right? But at the very end of the day, even if entrepreneurship is not your thing and you don't want to be a business owner, you don't want to start a side business, that's fine. But you have to at least do your own research to know enough and have enough business acumen to say, this is a good contract, I should sign this, or no, I'm going to go back and try to negotiate this, or hey, these perks and benefits aren't enough, this isn't going to cover it, can you do this, this, and this, or hey, that's a red flag, I'm running away from this one makes no sense to sign for it, right? So you've got to at least have business acumen, know how business works, so that when you go to sign up for your first job or second job, whatever it may be, you know what to look for and what to avoid. Right. But then, like you said, it's got to start before grad school. And unfortunately, that's kind of what our presentation at ELC is about, saying, hey, financial literacy should not be an issue by the time we get to grad school. It needs to be addressed in grade school. I mean, we need to be teaching young kids about financial literacy. I remember back when I was in high school, the only real finance course I took was economics. And all we really learned was supply and demand and, natural resources and what things were worth and why, and trade, and that was really it, right? I should have been learning how to balance a checkbook. I should have been learning credit cards and interest rates. I should have been learning how to buy a house. All of these things that are like life skills. I feel like that would have been way more important than the supply and demand curve. So I think it's got to happen earlier, and I think it's going to honestly take grassroots efforts from business owners and people like us to go out there and do that. The unfortunate thing is that a lot of us don't have the time because we are running businesses and doing things, so it's tough for us to get out there. But one of the things I do, I just did it recently here at a local kids entrepreneurs after school group, which was pretty cool. I got to talk to them, and I do a lot of like volunteer talking to younger groups about entrepreneurship and how to get involved and why it's important. And I say, like, right up front, hey, it's not for everybody. Totally okay. But the more you know about it, the better prepared you'll be to make those decisions when it comes down to an ROI or a return on investment. And truth be told, I didn't think 140,000 and 2 doctoral degrees was worth it. And I'm in education now, right? I'm teaching now, right? However, the one thing I did learn through all my mentors and all the things I've learned is it doesn't matter as long as you leverage it. Doesn't matter the degrees, doesn't matter the license, just leverage it. And luckily, I've been able to do that, right? With some of the Professors of Profit programs, I've been able to kind of take my curriculum development from the EDD and help build courses online and help, other healthcare providers build courses. My BA in English, I've, written blogs, my own blogs, right? I've done a lot of copywriting over the last couple of years. And then I wrote a book as well, right? So I use those skills and parlay them into a writing portion of the career, right? Then I kind of used a lot of my teaching and even acting skills from back in high school, right? I was in all the plays and the musicals and stuff. And, I played a bunch of sports and student union president. I was involved in everything. And a lot of those people skills and those personality type skills, and being from New York didn't hurt too, I think. But, it kind of taught me early on how to get in front of people and how to be forward facing and how to interact. And I think that helped with, things like YouTube and social media and podcasting, right? And stuff like that, and then little known fact, I was a radio DJ in college too. So I think that just kind of carried over eventually. And it became one of the things I really love doing in my part-time. So, you've got to find that zone of genius, like I like to call it, that one thing that you love, that you're passionate about, that you just want to get up and do every day. Right. And for me, it really is my side business, right? That's the stuff, business coaching, educating, all that stuff. That's what I love to do. I still love teaching. I love my 9 to 5. It's a great 9 to 5. But the thing that gets me up and really gets me passionate is the coaching and the business stuff. So I found my niche. I found my zone of genius, and I'm going all in on that as much as I can in my free time. So if you can find that, and the good thing with physical therapy, like we talked about at the beginning, there's 8 to 10 different specialties you can go into, right? And then after that, there's 4 or 5 different settings, right? And then after that, there's like 5 or 6 different layers that you can go into on those same settings and those same populations and everything. So, it's really endless, the amount of things that we can do. So it's just a matter of picking your thing, whatever it is that you love, and then leaning all in on it,
You brought up a good point. I feel like, myself included, granted, I did a residency straight out of PT school. But even in that was involved. But you brought up the idea of knowing or having enough business acumen to understand your contract, just your contract. We're not talking about you starting a business or doing anything, but just when you sit down with a potential employer, they present an offer, lay out everything for you, like having enough sense to know what it is that you're looking at and what works, what doesn't work. And obviously that's going to be a unique situation. Everybody's situation is going to be different. Their needs are different. Some things may be more important than others depending on the situation. But in your program, because you are teaching, like, do you guys address that? Because I feel like as a whole in DPT education, we are just setting them up to fail in a sense, because we give them enough clinical information to pass a test, right? It's like you're being taught to pass the board exam so that you can then practice, but at the same time makes the school look good because, hey, all our students pass on their first try or whatever the case may be. But then the minute that you've now become alumni, you are a licensed individual, you're kind of on your own, kind of depending on what may or may not have happened in your program. And then if you're lucky, you fall into a mentor, whether it be locally or through the awesome, amazing world of Twitter, where we've had the opportunity to interact with people. You see it all the time. Some, up and coming therapists are like, hey, what should I look for? Has anybody done this? And that's, luckily we have that. But I feel like this is stuff that we should be doing for them in school. I mean, we've got 3 years of DPT education, and later on, I'm going to discuss that with you because not too long ago, I think it was last week, you posed some different questions regarding the length of our current programs, which I definitely want to hit on with you. But I just feel like we're not using our time with the students effectively. Like I don't feel like we're squeezing everything out of it that we probably should. What are your thoughts on that?
No, you're absolutely right, Alex. You bring up a lot of good points there. And the only way that I was okay ethically and morally taking a position as a professor at a private university that charges a lot of money was being okay with the fact that A, I went there, so I know how expensive it is. I've got the bill to prove it, right? And B, I wanted to be able to weave in a lot of my teachings and stuff into the curriculum so that they know at least some real life stuff of what you're going to be facing, right? So for me, it was a perfect fit because one, you know, they're not lying when a program says there's just so much stuff to fit into that to teach them for the NPTE that we just don't have time to teach outside of that. It's very true. I'm seeing it firsthand. It is a lot of curriculum to shove into 2, 3, 4 years, whatever it may be. And, you know, I get that. You've got to pass the NPTE, right? But at the end of the day, I do feel like there has to be a good balance of NPTE stuff and then real world, real life stuff, right? It's that kind of that dichotomy, that separation between the ivory tower of academia and then clinical world, right? There's always that divide, and we're trying to bring it closer and closer together, especially with things like the HET podcast, right? So for me, I teach the business and admin course for my program, which is great because I can naturally weave that in now, right? But I also teach things like geriatrics, where I talk a lot about home health and SNF and, you know, things that I've done and have loved and what it really looks like, right? Hey, look, home health is a great option. You get paid very well. Your schedule's flexible. I loved it. It's a great setting. However, you know, documentation can be a beast. Starter cares can be a beast. See if you can negotiate not having to do starter cares. I did on my last job. It was PRN, but you know, some companies will do that. Well, they'll just let
wait. You negotiated not being able to.
I did.
I did evals.
I did evals.
I'm gonna tell you this: with this new Oasis, that might be factoring into some things moving forward, man. Because this new Oasis.
I know, man.
Is no joke.
The first time I ever did a starter care, 4 hours. It took me 4 hours. Ooh. Now I got better at it, and I got it down. But even still, I was still around 2:15, 2.5 to like really get one knocked out properly, you know. So yeah, the nurses did all our starter cares, unless there are some occasions where the doctor said PT only, no nursing. In which case, I did have to go out and do the starter care. But other than that, that happened very infrequently. They just needed a PT to do their evals. They had their PTAs and stuff. They just needed a PT. So I went out and I did that stuff for PRN. It was great. I had a really good company working with me there. But, you know, I think from a big picture standpoint, it's like, okay, if you're not taking it upon yourself to weave real life pearls into your curriculum, then yeah, you're probably not doing enough and you're probably not doing it right. One of the things that I made sure of, on top of weaving it into my classes and my curriculum and my real life everyday teaching, we started the Business Entrepreneurs and Private Practice Student Special Interest Group at St. Augustine, right? So that started on the Austin campus. It's now trying to reach out to all 5 campuses, which will be nice. We're probably 3 out of the 5 so far have it on campus. And again, that's an extracurricular student special interest group that meets once a month. We have a guest lecturer come in, and then there's some business meetings quarterly. But, you know, we just have them come in and talk about business. We have them talk about private practice. We have them talk about online businesses. We had Chris Gronkowski on recently to talk about Ice Shaker, his company up in Dallas, right? We had Kelly Starrett come on, right? Just people that are definitely thinking outside the box and doing different things and that are just good business leaders, right? Because again, most businesses are more alike than they are different, right? They have principles that just work. And so again, I feel like if we can teach those things and weave those things in, and we tell them, hey, look, again, you don't have to be an entrepreneur to be interested in this stuff and be in the group. We had Ben Fung come on to talk about negotiating and red flags and how to, you know, talk to your employer, interviews, and how you should be interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you, especially early on in your career, right? You're trying to do that dance and figure out if it's a good fit. So, you know, the group itself is very, very helpful to those that are students and that just don't, you know, they don't know. And again, all of our meetings are open to everyone, so anyone can attend any of the guest lectures and stuff. We record all of them, put them up on YouTube, and they're in, you know, a YouTube library now, so people can go watch the replays. And then, you know, on top of that, we've started ordering some business books through our budget. We get a budget every trimester, and we've ordered a couple business books, and we're putting them in the library in a special business section. So if students have interest in business and just want to learn about it, they can go and check out some of those resources, right? We're trying to make it as easy as possible, knowing that, hey, they've got classwork, they've got a course load they've got to get through, right? And so, yeah, I'm going to coach and teach toward the NPTE for sure, especially in my classes, because I have to hit those benchmarks and stuff. But I'm not a huge grade fan, it's the grades are irrelevant to me. It's like, did you learn something? Did you take away something from this course? And can I teach you a little bit of the real world to get you prepped and ready? And then if anybody ever has any questions, my office hours are always open. People scheduled with me before to just talk about, hey, what should I do? I'm thinking about going into this, or I'm thinking about doing that. Luckily, I've done most of it all in my 16 years, so I can kind of speak to a lot of it. But I think, it's going above and beyond that 9 to 5 clock in, clock out professor or therapist or whatever. You've got to just want to do more and be more. And again, like, I've had a great career. My business is doing well. So this is my way of giving back, like anything I can do to help, especially students. Like, hey man, I was there. I went through it. I've been there, done that, got the t-shirt. It's not fun. I get it. But once you get on the other side, to me, it's been totally worth it. And again, it's just because I feel like I've leveraged it very well and had really great mentors, which I wish was around when I graduated. None of that was around when I graduated PT school. Otherwise, my life would have been probably drastically different. But, we have it now. The internet's made the world a very small place, and the PT world especially is even smaller. It can all pretty much be found on Twitter nowadays. So, times are good, man. It's a good time to be alive. It's a good time to be a PT for sure.
Yeah, most definitely. So, along with having the roadmap and talking about multiple revenue streams, you talked about podcasting for profits. And I'm sure this is something Alex is also interested in too, because we didn't really start this podcast to make money. We just wanted to create a platform, because we talk a lot, like on Twitter, we have our views. So we're like, look, let's just channel it and invite people and have like fireside discussions virtually. But I had someone ask me, how are you going to make money with podcasting? Isn't that going to consume a lot of your time that you're already running short on? But I'm realizing there is so much opportunities with YouTube channels, monetizing stuff, even with social media. You have business owners still arguing that using social media to promote or market your business doesn't make sense. I've heard business owners say that social media is the devil. And it is the cheapest form of marketing that has been available to me.
Yeah. Yeah, we're in a good time.
Yeah. So how do you convince people set in that mindset that, hey, you could do podcasting for profit. You can do Instagram to monetize or Facebook? Because I definitely get a check every month from Facebook for Instagram on Facebook.
Yeah, I mean, you may not be able to convince them, right? A lot of the older business folks are kind of set in their ways, and they do, they're very anti-social media. I get it, man. But like, if I can show metrics and just be like, hey, this is what I'm doing. Hey, here's the monetization that I'm coming up with, and I'm not that good at it. Like, I'm decent, but like, here, look, it works. Like, if you just do this, it'll work, and then it's up to them to like, it's a very internal conversation that they need to have and realize that, like, hey, are you just afraid of it because you don't know how it works and what's going on? Totally cool. That happens. We all get that way. Can you put your ego aside for a little bit and say, hey, maybe this does work and we should try it? If that's the case, again, you don't have to learn it all. You don't have to be good at it. You can outsource it. You can pay somebody to do it for you, right? But I do recommend, and this is what I've done with all of my side hustles and side gigs, is I've tried them. I've done them. I've gotten my feet wet. I've tested the waters to see, because even if I don't like it, I know enough at least to pick the person that I know to outsource to, because I know they know what they're talking about, right? So, SEO, for instance, right? That's not something I'm huge into. I know it matters, that it can help. It can, drive search engine stuff for sure. But not great at it. I think naturally it'll just come with blogging and stuff, right? I think that'll help with the, my website and stuff, but I couldn't run an SEO campaign for myself. I know the things that are involved. I know I need backlinks. I know I need, plenty of blogs and keywords and all of this stuff. I don't know that I have the time, effort, or energy to do all that at a really high level, but I know a couple of people that I could ask, like, hey, I really need your services. This is what I'm focusing on for the next 6 months. Could you help me start getting this, SEO juice going? And I feel comfortable going to those 3 or 4 people because I know they're experts in it. I've seen their work. I know people they've worked with. I've done my research and vetted them. So I know at this point, a lot of them I call friends at this point, which is great. It's always good to have people that you are close with that can get the job done and get results for their people, right? So, yeah, I mean, the podcasting for profits thing, I talked about that at PPS last year and then at CSM early this year, and it's amazing, right? We started the HET podcast not to make money or anything. It was because we were generally curious. We had bumpy rides, Brandon and myself, going through grad school. And we just thought that a lot of things could have been done better. We just didn't know the answers because we weren't academicians. We weren't teaching at the time, So we had the experts on to talk about what they thought was broken and how they would go about fixing it. And that worked for a really long time. We're still going 6-7 seasons at this point, and we have fortunately been able to partner up with some really good sponsors that have made the podcast profitable. And for next year, 2023, we have even bigger plans for expansion. I brought on a bunch of new co-hosts. So, it's going to be a really good time. And again, relatively profitable. Not to say that it was easy, not to say that it didn't take time. I didn't just wake up with a profitable podcast. That's not how it worked at all. But, if you put in the work and do the reps and it's something you're truly passionate about and you love to do, eventually it just kind of happens, right? You find good fits, your network grows, you kind of have people reach out to you, even say, hey, I'm really interested, do you do podcast sponsorship? I've had that a couple times now happen over the last couple of weeks. So it's nice to be in that position, but at the same time, it also needs to make sense for you and your audience too. It needs to be a good fit. Otherwise, you won't see us pitching purple mattresses anytime soon, I don't think. Even though everybody's got to sleep, and I know how important sleep is, it's just not really a great fit for our audience. We want something that they're going to be able to use and benefit from. So we try to keep our alignments straight with our sponsors, But I've got a YouTube link on the channel there. If you go to youtube.com/PT Educator, there's about an hour and a half talk on podcasting for profits. I believe it was from CSM last year. So I'll send you guys that link and Twitter there, and you can watch the many ways that you can monetize a podcast.
That would be great, especially for students. It's hard to have a job while in PT school. Yeah. I see no reason why they can't do podcasting.
Absolutely.
I mean, a lot of us love to talk anyway, and we have valuable opinions. So, and YouTube, it's free.
Yeah.
Free. Instagram Live, it's free. I think it's Periscope on Twitter. So yeah, utilize these mediums to try to make money. I mean, Alex always talks about us being at the kiddie table, and tied to that is that a lot of us are so used to trading our time for money. We need to see a direct transaction. So it's so hard to think outside the box that, hey, if I do this or produce that episode, it's going to increase my networking and open me up to other possibilities and opportunities. And I don't know, maybe the more people they see being successful at it, it will start to sink in that it can be done. So I'm hoping so.
Well, you bring up a really good point though, Mo, right? It doesn't happen overnight. You didn't wake up successful. Like, you guys have been doing this for a little while, right? We've been doing it for a little while. It's literally 5 to 10 years of hard work, and then you become successful, and they say, oh, look at this lucky guy who was overnight success. No, it was 10 years of hard work Then an opportunity came, and because of the hard work, we were able to pounce on that opportunity at the right time and take it on, ready to go. So like, it doesn't come easy. None of it does, right? But if it did, like, everybody'd be doing it, right? And I think one of the key takeaways there is that when you do these things, right? When you write a book, when you start a podcast, when you start an Instagram page, when you do things with regularity over and over and over, and you keep showing up with value, and you keep showing up with a servant's heart, trying to help people and bring value and provide value, eventually you also establish authority and expertise in that thing, whatever it is, right? Whatever your niche is. So like, I now have the expertise and authority to talk on 5 or 6 different topics or revenue streams pretty well. Like, I've got them dialed in at this point, right? And I feel comfortable talking about them, whether it be giving a speech somewhere or whether it be presenting somewhere. I got another book in the works. I probably got 5 total in a series that I'm looking over the next 5 years. I'm pretty excited about. But like, again, it's just, I like to operate at a level that's always weird, outside the box thinking. Just like, hey, to me at this point, patient care is easy. I can close my eyes and do that, right? Teaching, still a work in progress, right? I'm only about 2 years in, so I still need, to work on my flow and crafting things and getting my point across, and, telling stories, and, definitely using metaphors and things to try to relate to students, because they all kind of learn a little differently. But I just feel at this point, teaching and educating has become really, one of my areas of expertise as well, right? I've got the credentials for it. So either you get the credentials, the certifications, the letters after your name, whatever, or you start and document your journey and eventually become the expert through the journey. And then you show people, look at the last 5 years. That's my journey to get me to this expertise level where I'm successful and I'm doing all the things that you want to do. And worst case scenario, let me mentor you. I'll speed up your timeline. That's one way I can help. If you want to go at it by yourself and do it all alone, you can. It's just going to take you 5-10 years. No problem. It's nothing wrong with that either. But that's always my kind of, talk, my soapbox talk when it comes to paid mentorship and all these, coaching programs and stuff. It's like, hey, if somebody's done it already, they've been there, they've done that, and they'll speed up my timeline, show me how to do it, I'm in, man. Sign me up. Time is more meaningful to me these days than the money is, because I know the money will come back. It's just more about the mentorship and speeding things up.
So, go ahead, Alex. Sorry.
You bring up the mentorship, right? So I'm a firm believer that in order for you as an individual to value something that somebody else may have or may be offering, you got to have skin in the game, right? If you don't have any skin in the game, you're just not going to value it. It's just like when we have conversations about, whether it be side hustles or a cash-based business, if we don't price it accordingly, people won't value it, right? We can't give our services away for free, because then if it's free, the argument can be made, well, what value does it bring if there's no, you can't, put a price to it per se, right?
Yeah, paid for pays attention, right? I mean, when you're paying for something, you're damn well sure you better get your money out of it, So you're locked in, you're focused.
So what do you say to those individuals? And I've seen this on Twitter before, and I think probably like a month or 2 back, it kind of sparked an interesting conversation where, you have those people saying, why does it cost so much? Why should somebody spend thousands, if not more, of dollars to learn, or as you said it, to speed up? Right? To pay for the time, basically. You're paying for somebody's time and their experiences to help fast track your time. But if we're saying that, hey, these PT students, they're coming out with thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars of debt, now we're asking them to spend thousands of dollars to get this knowledge, right? And again, for everybody out there, I will repeat again, you don't have any skin in the game, you're not going to take it seriously, right? I'm not going to value you if I'm not giving you anything of mine, right? That's how I value it. It's an exchange. I give, in this hypothetical situation, I give you money, you're going to give me something in return, right? And now I determine the value of what you're giving me and if it's worth the price. Because as has always been said in the Twitter world, is like, price is what you pay, value is what you're getting in return, right?
Exactly.
So there has to be, and only you can make that equation work, right? We all here have our likes. The finer things that we like and the things that we will spend money on. Everybody does. Everybody has those one or more than one things that they like to spend money on. And somebody else may look at it and say, and you're crazy for spending X amount of dollars on that thing. But the value that individual gets makes that money worth it, right? So, but what do you say to those people that are saying these students are coming out, they've had all this money, like where are they getting this money from, or why should they spend thousands?
Yeah. Well, I think, the big thing is it's perceived value, right? Again, the price is irrelevant, right? To me, it's like, hey, either, the price that I'm going to offer for whatever this is going to bring you the thing that you need, right? Which is the perceived value. Like, yeah, I need that. So if you're able to give that to me or figure out a way for me to get that, then it's worth the value, right? So in my mind, the case then becomes, yeah, okay, are we going to speed up your timeline, right? Or better yet, can I give to you? Can I get you to a point? Can I give you the deliverables that will get you the transformation that you're looking for? Can I get you from point A to point B, right? And point A is usually, for me and my clients, it's usually like either new grad or, somebody who's been in it for a couple of years but is already burning out or is, super stressed and concerned about their high student loan rates, right? Well, okay, if let's say you're in $140,000 worth of student loan debt, right? Like I was. And you have a plan set out to pay that off over 20 years, paying $150 a month for those 20 years. And then on the 20th year, they forgive whatever's left and you have to give, pay taxes on the forgiveness amount, right? Like you earned it, like salary. That's very much in line with the repay, right? The revised pays you earn plan. Okay. Well, what if I could give you the transformation that would turn you from new grad, burned out physical therapist to new grad physical therapist who is in a new job that's less demanding, maybe not making as much, but is happy, right? And has a side business that's bringing in enough money that, let's just say the ROI is 5X, right? So let's say my program is, $1,000, and I'm able to show you the steps to take to start a business that makes you $5,000 in your first month, right? That's a little more than $1,000 a week, which can be done very easily in a lot of different ways. Well, is that 5X return on your investment in yourself worth it? I would argue that it probably is, because once I've then paid off that $5,000, or that $1,000 investment with the $5,000, well, now everything else is gravy. That's all profit after that, right? And I did that very much so with Facebook ads, right? When I was first starting my mobile practice, I thought I could run Facebook ads. I did it. I was not successful with it. And I was like, oh, man, this sucks. So I, probably burnt through about $1,500 worth of Facebook ads before I realized this isn't working. So then I took a course, right? I paid $5,000 to a Facebook ad specialist to show me the right way to do Facebook ads. And after that, I got 3 new patients on the first time I ran a Facebook ad. Those 3 new patients had a approximate plan of care worth $1,800 cash pay out of pocket, right? So that's $5,400 right there, right off the bat, right? And all I did was invest in a $5,000 course. So now the first week I have 3 patients that are starting with me. Those 3 patients pay for the course and a little bit of profit. And then every new patient those Facebook ads bring in is all profit again, right? So again, I was cool with investing in myself to learn more about these courses and learn how to do these Facebook ads, And so again, I'm not great at it, but I'm good enough now where I know what to look for and when to outsource. And so again, I'm a huge believer in investing in myself. Every investment I've ever made in myself has always panned out. I've never made an investment in myself and thought, oh man, that was such a huge loss. Either I took something huge from it and implemented it and did better with it, or I learned. It was like, well, I was doing this wrong. I got to do this now, or that's not what I expected it to be. I have to do something else. Investing in yourself has got to be one of the best investments out there.
Honestly, it's the only way you're going to get to where you want to go.
Now, it's easy for us three to say that because we have that mindset. But a lot of people suffer from imposter syndrome. And if they don't believe that they are worth that investment, they're not going to invest in themselves. Yeah. And discipline and consistency is required to be successful in any business venture. And people give up because they want that instant overnight success. Yeah. We've been doing this 6 years in. I mean, well, business-wise or more or longer. And there are ups and downs, but we keep going. Yeah, go ahead, Alex.
Well, I was just going to say, to kind of piggyback that, I mean, we continue to go, we go up and down, we go, and as you mentioned, even an investment that is deemed a bad investment, there's a lesson to be learned from it, right? So in truly, it is not a bad investment because you still gain something from it. I do feel, though, that there's a certain belief that, and not just in our profession, I feel like, I honestly feel like in society as a whole, that everybody should have it equal. That we should all be given the same information, regardless of the fact that Mo may have worked harder for that information or longer for that information, that I've worked harder and longer, that you've worked, right? So it's almost like, hey, you guys did the work. Cool, let me get that.
The thing is, we could give people the information. Scott is giving them the information. You're giving the information. I'm giving them the information. They get that tons of information on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, whatever. But it's all about application. It's all about the commitment to do it. And that's why so many people don't get ahead, because they fail at doing. There's a saying that I heard recently. If I can use my experience and learn from it, I'm wise. If I can use the experience of someone else and learn from it, I am blessed. But the person who doesn't learn from their own experience or someone else's experience is a damn fool.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of fools walking around here.
Well, we've got fools, and we've got people, again, just my opinion, there's no work ethic. There's no work ethic, right? Because again, like we discussed before, we said before, if you put skin in the game, you're going to naturally, more often than not, going to work a little bit harder, right? I've spent, and it doesn't have to be financial. You don't always have to spend money,
time,
right? But you've put something into it, right? So kind of, and you're 100% right. It's application and all this stuff that you get with this information, because this podcast episode alone has information, right? You can take and do what you want with it, but we're doing it in a manner where it's free, right? Anybody that watches this episode, they're going to pick up on tidbits from what Scott has said, Mo has said, myself has said. Now, if we turned it into and said, hey, look, this is the preview. Here's a teaser. If you want more, this is what it's going to take, whether it be time, money, whatever the case may be, right? But it's almost like people want the info and the application in one.
Yeah.
To where they don't have to apply themselves, right? It's just like, you got the info. All right. Since you got the info, like, do it for me. And that's just not how it works. And I feel like that mentality of just like, hey, I graduated with a DPT. Somebody just cut me a check for 6 figures because I just showed up.
Yeah.
and that's the part that to me is a bit frustrating. And my argument with, just internal dialogue is when people are saying like, well, you shouldn't have to pay X amount of dollars to get something. Like, well, that's the only way you're going to put the work in.
Well, and it's the accountability that comes along with it, right? Like a lot of my information is free, right? Like my book even, right? My book is like $6 or something, $5 on Amazon Kindle, right? Like, and I've given the book away for free tons of times. If people are just that hard up and they need, a little help, yeah, I'll throw copies of my book left and right. It's not that big of a deal. I'm cool with that, right? I've given students like PDF versions of my book. There's a copy of the book in the library they can take out. Like, that the information is out there. It's not even all my information, right? It's Google. Like, you can Google anything you want. But if you're not going to have that accountability and somebody there to check up on you and make sure and push you out of your comfort zone and be into the right things you need to be doing when you need to be doing them, that, again, that's part of the mentorship is accountability. Having skin in the game is having, like, even paying for it's like paying for a personal trainer, right? It's like, I'm not going to get up and work out, but if I'm paying somebody to beat me into shape, it's like, all right, well, I need to probably get up and go today. I'm paying for it. I need to show up. If not, I know he's going to keep calling me and nagging me, and like, I got to get up and go. Right. So it's the accountability of like, hey, did you work on that thing we talked about last week? No, I didn't get around to it. Well, you're not going to get any further than if you don't finish step 1. I can't bring you to step 2 unless you're going to do step 1. Right. And it's like you said, like, hey, I can lead the horse to water. I can't make you drink. You've got to implement. You've got to show this stuff. And again, if money is the issue, but you're really like work ethic driven and like you've got a good head on you and you want to learn more, I'll work with you. We'll figure something out. I've given scholarships to my program numerous times, and it's just because I truly believe in the jockey. Like, I feel like this is somebody who's got their head on right, really wants to benefit themselves, and they will eventually, get to a point where I know they'll cross the finish line. They won't give up until they're there. So I'm totally fine with that, but like I said, you've got to show the right steps. You've got to show the right, implementation and the drive to get there to be somebody who can be considered for something like that.
So this is a perfect segue into this very important question, because it seems like people want to wave a magic wand and student loans disappear. So for DPT students, what are the best options for them in terms of repayment and not feeling that they can't come above water in terms of repaying their monthly student loan obligations, and while earning average salary and wanting to purchase a house, wanting to take trips, getting married, having kids? What are the solutions?
Yeah,
give us like 5-10 solutions.
Yeah. The life decisions are being affected by these student loans, right? We talked about that in our ELC presentation, right? So like, yeah, houses, family, cars, big purchases, like life decisions are being affected. So the first step, the one thing you have to do is talk to a certified financial planner who specializes in student loans, because there's 8 to 10 different ways to pay back your student loans. Every one of them is different for every person. There's going to be an individual plan that works for you specifically and your goals and what you're trying to accomplish and when you're trying to accomplish them, right? So, for me, I use Chris Varela at Varela Financial. You guys can look him up. He's been great. He specifically focuses on DPT student loan repayment. And essentially, like I said, originally I was on the straight up plan, which would have had me at $1,700 a month. I switched over to the income driven repayment plan, which dropped me down to about $700 a month. And then eventually I was able to get with Chris, and he showed me for what I'm planning to do. The revised pay as you earn plan is what made the most sense, because I was trying to just take money from my businesses and throw it at big chunks, to knock it down as quick as possible and be done with it. Well, he's like, that could work for sure, but like, that's what banks want you to do. They want you to repay all your money as quick as possible, right? And so he said, why not take the difference in the $700 a month and the $150 a month or so and invest it into something else that's going to make you more money over the 20 years. And then by the 20th year, when you have to repay that for the, the tax break, you'll have plenty of money to repay it and the money you made from investing, right? So, and again, that doesn't work for everybody. Some people just want to get the debt off their shoulders as quick as possible. Then that's going to be a different plan, right? Some people want to do it in 10 to 15 years and have a reasonable payment. That's a different plan. So it's going to be very individual and different for everyone, which is why, again, I recommend going to a good certified financial planner, but one that knows about the student loan repayments. That's the first thing. Then the second thing, again, most of the time is start a business. I mean, and I'm not just saying that because I'm an entrepreneur and a business owner. I'm saying that because you get taxed differently than if you're just making money as an employer, right? Or employee, I should say, right? You by owning a business, there's a lot of things you can write off for your business that help decrease your overall salary and help you get taxed at a lower level, right? So like, things like printer paper, new computer, I bought a massage table for my mobile therapy business, right? And like all these things that you're buying for the business can be write-offs, tax write-offs, and again, this isn't certified financial planning here. I'm not a CPA, but I recommend getting with a good local, business CPA, a small business CPA to do your accounting and taxes, but they'll walk you through all the things that you can write off. And the better ones will show you more and more and more things that you can incorporate into your business to help with write-offs. Like you can use your house apparently up to 3 or 4 times a year as a business meeting place. If you're hosting like masterminds or courses or things like that. I had never thought about that, but now I might, right? I might start having the masterminds and stuff here at my house. You can pay yourself as if you're renting out the house for the mastermind event, and that becomes like a write-off. So it's like, awesome. Did not know about that, right? Eventually, when I start amassing some rental properties like we're trying to do, we could use one of the rental properties as, a house essentially to host one of these, mastermind events or something. So, that's something that I'm looking into now as well. There's so many options out there available. But again, if you start a business, even if you're just making, 5 to 10 grand extra a year doing this little, hobby, as long as you can stay profitable, take that extra chunk of money and do with it whatever you will. But, investing, it's probably a smart idea, but then take the tax breaks and the benefits from the business, and help apply that to offset your salary, So those are just kind of the 2 or 3 big tips that I would say, the big takeaways of what these, new grads need to be doing. Or if you're not going that route, then you better negotiate yourself a really good contract, That's hit that 6 figures, get every bit of it and then some. So
as we get close to kind of wrapping up here, I wanted to circle back to, so I think it was like last week, you had proposed a question on Twitter as to what changes could be made to the DPT program, right? So a lot of things that we hear time and time again, the increased amount of debt that they come in, we're spending 3 years in a DPT program, either at one given time or spread out throughout the course of those 3 years, you're doing clinical work, right? So you're paying a tuition for not necessarily being in a class, but you're out in a clinic, then you're somebody else's free, cheap labor, and, they make money and everything that comes along with that. And one of the things that I think you had mentioned was, going from a 3-year program to some sort of a 2-year program and bunch of mixes within that. I tried to read through the thread and got some stuff, but what kind of feedback did you get, number one? And then number two, what would you do as director of Profit University or whatever the case may be as to what you think is ideal? Because I do feel like the time is now to kind of reevaluate where we are as a DPT program and how we want to address that moving forward, because I don't know that the 3-year program as is necessarily sustainable in the long term.
Well, I will say that overall it was a pretty negative reaction for the most part. I think everybody was like, "Oh no, that'll never work," right? And I think that's true. It'll never work until it does. So EIM and a lot of these programs across the nation are implementing these 2-year hybrid programs anyway, with a third year strongly recommended residency, which 50% students do, 50 don't. And then you're out working quicker, right? But my plan was probably didn't verbalize it as well as I had thought. And there's I probably need to go back and rehash it, but my thought was, okay, let's just make the tuition negligible. Let's just say maybe $5,000 a year, right, for 2 years, and the third year is a residency where you're working, right? And so the first 2 years you have your clinicals mixed in to those 2 years. So maybe at the end of the first year, there's an intro clinical 4 weeks on, an acute care or something. Then maybe halfway through the second year, there's a 6-week clinical. And then maybe at the end of the third year, or second year again, there's another 8-week or 12-week clinical, right? Then once they graduate from that 2-year program, which we're already kind of doing with some of these hybrid programs, that third year becomes a mandatory working residency where they're getting paid maybe 2/3 of a salary. And, they're getting also hands-on clinical work, working towards a specialty that they want to be in maybe, or try at least, right? And then at that point, the university then would have the clinic on campus, or the clinics on campus, to do, what they needed to. And the patient revenue generated from these residencies would help pay for the tuition and stuff, right? So that was my initial thought. And I think one of the arguments was like, oh, well, we're asking them to do a third year residency and they don't even know what they want to do yet. Well, I would hope after the 2 years, they kind of had an idea, right? But even if not, let's say they do the third year residency and they culminate in, let's say, an OCS, and they're like, I didn't really like that. Ortho's not my thing. I think I want to do sports. Well, guess what? When they graduate and they're making money or so, right? Again, the hope was that almost like the Army, the first 2 years or so would be owed back to the university. So they'd work in the university system to where they could go through maybe a second residency if they wanted, or just work in a setting within the university, again, making money back for the university through patient care. And then they sit for the SCS at the end of that fourth year, or whatever, until they maybe found a specialty that they liked, right? You'd still be there in the university system, so you could try a couple different things, But again, like, these are just ideas. These are things that I think we definitely need to start talking about. I feel like it would be probably best for like a Graham session or something, like, hey, what's the new model? What's working? What's not? The hybrids seem to be helping out. Yeah, it's 2 years. It's a little quicker. But then again, the program I work in is a flex program, right? So it's 4 years. It's stretched out longer for people that are working full time or have a family to take care of or whatever, right? So it's stretched out to a fourth year, which is another totally different model. And is it working? I don't know. We'll see. Yet to be determined. But I think overall there's a bunch of different ways to get this done, and we need to start having the conversation. Like you said, Alex, now's the time, better than ever. Post-COVID, we're all in a fog. We're coming out, like, new ideas are getting thrown around. Technology showing us that, we can do Zooms and figure things out. I think now is a great time to start, tearing things down and trying other things, and I think if I had, my way with it, I think that PT schools should be freestanding universities, their own little thing where they can control the tuition, they can control the curriculum. They probably obviously still have to go through CAPTE standards and all that, but I don't think we should necessarily have to have a tie with a state university or a private university. Just have it be its own freestanding thing, and from there they should be able to then govern the way they do things and how that kind of looks to them and what's successful.
Well, you mentioned Graham sessions, and at the last Graham session, at a fireside conversation, another business owner brought up this idea, and personally, I thought it made a lot of sense. Now, with nursing, you could start off being a CNA, get certified, make money. Then you go to school, again, earn an LPN, make money, which is sort of equivalent to the PTA. But then from LPN, you could go again, not necessarily having to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, because you can get the RN degree at some community college and you become a registered nurse, earning more money. So, should we create a track in physical therapy that can allow a tech to go to a PTA to go to a PT? And if you want to do that specialty stuff like be a nurse practitioner and make more money, we do something like that. I honestly believe if we consider that and incorporate it, it would help with controlling the cost of obtaining that degree.
Yeah, I mean, at that rate,
they want to come to it further.
Yeah, you'd have exit ramps, right? You could get off whenever you wanted, stop your education whenever you wanted. Time-wise, you could come back in and continue your education whenever you wanted, at your own speed. I think it's a good idea. It's a viable option. We just, again, you got to make sure that, at some point you're keeping your clinical skills up, right? So working helps with that for sure. And then it all does have to be kind of within a window. I think maybe a 5 to 10 year window where all the courses still matter and make sense, because some of it does build on each other as you're going up that ladder. So, I'm open to it. I think it's a viable option. I like the idea, but, I think a lot of it kind of comes down to CAPTI and a lot of its governing bodies and ideas, which, as we're seeing, a lot of them seem to be very arbitrary. Like the 50% terminal degrees to teach at a DPT program, like that just seems very arbitrary to me. Because there's a lot of things that you just can't take into account. Like there could be a really great teacher and educator who's a DPT who's better than a PhD at teaching, right? At actually getting the info across and learning, right? But because the PhD has the terminal degree, they're given, a foot up, or, the PhD might be amazing at research, but not a really great educator and teacher. So, it depends on what you're valuing there and why. It seems arbitrary to me. I don't know. And it just seems like they're not taking the right things into account when they're looking at things like that,
It's funny you mentioned that, because we had that same conversation last week with Allie, and that was the same thing she said. And, she's a professor over at Pitt. So it was just like, again, I think that, as I've said before, I think our profession is at a crossroads. Not only from the clinical side, but obviously the educational side. And I think now is the time to have these conversations. Now is the time to think outside the box and maybe do some things that are more disruptive on the surface, but can really bring about the change that I feel like we all want. Because we've been traveling down this path of, well, this is how it's always been done, right? We've always done it this way. And I don't know that it's getting us to where we want to be. As a whole, reimbursements are going down. It's getting more expensive just to live. Never mind the cost of education and all that stuff, right? You throw all these things in, like, we've got to make a move. We've got to make a move, and we've got to figure out how we can get ourselves positioned, near and long term, to be able to make an impact. And that kind of all ties into, as Mo mentioned earlier, where I like to say that as a profession, we sit at the kiddie table. We're not taken seriously for many different reasons. We can't even amongst ourselves in the profession have a united front, right? Like, we've got so much internal conflict about how we treat patients, what we treat them with. Is it really beneficial? Is it just placebo? And all the nuances of those conversations. So, like, we're sitting here, fighting amongst ourselves, and the rest of the world is just pulling further and further away from us. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how we move forward these couple of years, because CMS is making some changes. So, Mo and I are feeling that here in the home health arena. Obviously outpatient private practices have been feeling it for a while. So we've got to get creative, because the old way of doing things is not cutting it and will not cut it, I believe, if we continue that way. So obviously you've been doing stuff on your own and like you said, thinking outside of the box and putting a lot of good stuff together, man. So kudos to you. Continue to do that. We really, again, do appreciate your time this evening. It was awesome, good knowledge. Hopefully everybody that's watching is able to pick up some stuff and kind of like we said on this, is be accountable to yourself, and then you'll get the results, because you're absolutely right. None of us got to where we are overnight, even though it may seem like that on the surface. We've put in a lot of time, effort, sweat equity, but that's what it takes. And as long as you put in the work, eventually you'll get rewarded for that. So thank you very much again for your time. Thank you to all our subscribers, listeners. Please share with family, friends, and let's just continue to get the word out. But again, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you guys. Like I said, keep doing the great work, man. Keep fighting the good fight. Like, I love what you guys are doing, and like I said, it's just great to see good people doing good things. And again, it comes back to just do more, be more. Like 9 to 5 just ain't cutting it. Like you should strive to want more for yourself, for your patients, for your profession. It's going to result in better outcomes if you do. So.
Absolutely.
If you really want to practice at the top of your license, do more, be more.
Amen.
Awesome. Well, again, thanks.